let's start this story with 2011, where Mark Andreessen said why software is eating the world. What he was referring to was the fact that pretty much everything we were doing was becoming software driven. We started to order food with software, we started to book our tickets with software, dating with software, everything pretty much became software. And that led to a massive digitization of every activity we did, and that led to accumulation of huge amount of data and a kind of a detailed digital footprint. And then more recently, we are seeing the CEO of NVIDIA saying that software is eating the world, but AI is going to eat software. What he is referring to here is that it's hard to imagine software without AI these days. In other words, when you think about software, it's all about convenience, and a lot of steps in any sort of a user journey in a software, a lot of the steps could be automated with AI. So in a way, if you want to design software properly, you need to be mindful of AI from the very beginning, so you collect the right data and automate the processes as you evolve and go further ahead. The thing that made such statements to become more and more realistic these days is particularly around the advancements in the field of machine learning. So we can divide machine learning particularly around two key families of algorithms. The first one is a statistical machine learning, which has got its roots in the field of statistics, but with more and more data, we seem to be able to train more and more algorithms which have got their roots in statistics. More recently, however, we are seeing a lot of developments in the field of machine learning called deep learning. Particularly three application areas of deep learning: natural language processing and conversational AI, as well as computer vision and reinforcement learning, are the things that took computers to what they call superhuman performance in all these three areas. Like, for example, we are seeing algorithms that can read Chinese and without even one of the scientists working on it knowing Chinese. Or we are seeing algorithms who can do better than a radiologist in understanding the presence of a cancer tissue in an image or not. And of course, reinforcement learning, you saw a few slides in the earlier talks where we saw AlphaGo out of DeepMind that managed to outperform the best human Go player. So all these things are the reasons we are hearing AI everywhere we go pretty much these days. And also in a recent report by McKinsey, the estimate is that in 2016, tech giants have spent somewhere near $30 billion in AI. That's just the big companies in tech. And the number is expected to grow. And one interesting thing in the same report is that financial institutions are going to be next to tech giants when it comes to the use of AI and the benefit of AI. And that's quite interesting for insurance, of course, as one of the key pillars of financial services. So when you think about insurance, one simple kind of compartmentalized version of insurance could be that you can think of the beginning of a customer journey starts with distribution, which is the way an insurance company finds you and sells a product to you. And of course, after they find a customer, it's about underwriting, like how risky are you and what should be the price and so on. And then after that, it's about claims, like let's say something happens and you want to make a claim, how should that be handled? And of course, more recently, it's becoming a new emerging trend where insurance companies want to provide more and more services because it's going to be a win-win scenario that less claims happen is ideal for both parties. And of course, an insurance company ends up having the money it earns from premiums and it has to pay it later. And when you've got money sitting in your bank account, you want to make sure that you add more value to it. Hence, investments is one of the key pillars of insurance companies' activities. And of course, for all these things to work, you need to have a seamless operations ideally in place. So these are the key components of an insurance company. Of course, different people might have a different way of summarizing it, but I think this pretty much captures most of the things in an insurance company. And if you look at, in a recent report by McKinsey, they analyzed roughly around 500 different insurtech companies, which are the companies that are providing technology in the insurance space. And they realized that the majority of the work right now is happening around property and casualty insurance around distribution. So that's where the majority of the innovation is happening. But of course, other areas in health as well, like you might have heard about Oscar Health, Clover Health, or various other companies. So in a way, this is roughly the distribution of how things are happening. But I would like to give you a few examples. As I said, this chart is generated by more than 500 insurtech companies, and I'm sure the list is way bigger than that. So as a result, I'm going to just show you a few examples. That's not the full picture, of course. When it comes to distribution, a couple of companies have become really famous lately. On the left side, you see a chatbot interface for Lemonade, which recently raised a $250 million round by SoftBank Wealth. And you see that the most convenient thing they're providing is a couple of text messages and so on. You can get covered with an insurance cover. Another one was Trove, which again, fairly successful at raising different consecutive rounds. And their story is that they can provide you with insurance covers of pretty much anything you want, your personal belongings, like your iPhone, your laptop. You can turn it on and off and so on. So in a way, they're trying to be very nice in terms of the digital experience, but at the same time, they're trying to tailor to some niche needs that customers might have. On the underwriting side, Lapitus is an interesting one in the life insurance space. One of the things they're claiming they can do is they can take a picture of your face and based on that predict your risk of mortality and hence a fair price for your life insurance. Of course, most of these sort of claims are not going to find their way into academic literature, so it's really hard to validate it or not. But again, these are the directions that the field of life insurance is going towards. But again, there are plenty of other more scientifically validated stories that could provide a much better prediction of mortality and other things that could be relevant to generally healthcare and life insurance in particular. Claims. Tractable is a good company out of Imperial that is now moved to Silicon Valley. And what they do is you can take a picture of a car after an accident, it does some damage assessment and facilitates further next steps. We have developed a similar solution at AIG as well in my team. Another one that is trying to mitigate risk is Neos. It's a new startup in London. What they do is that they provide homes with sensors and devices and so on, so they could help you prevent risk of water leakage damage and so on. Again, it's a new agenda and a lot of insurance offerings that they try to make sure that the general risk of claims happening goes down so both parties win. That's in the consumer space. Of course, the IoT in the commercial space is huge. Like if you're insuring a company like General Electric, they could have a massive IoT ecosystem. And again, there's a lot that AI can do in that space. Investments, again, there's a lot of AI happening here. Two Sigma is a famous, well-established firm that does a lot of AI. A couple of other examples are Prattle and Omniscience. They're entering this world fairly recently. All of them are analyzing different types of news and diverse set of data, trying to predict stock movement or whatever asset class you may want to invest in. So basically, all I was saying is that there are different applications of AI in various parts of insurance ecosystem. But one big trend that is happening in the industry right now is the trend of what they call ecosystems. Probably the best examples of these ecosystems is being seen in China. Ping An probably is the best representative of this trend. But generally speaking, in a recent report, they're estimating that there are a few different ecosystems that are emerging, each of them with multiple trillion-dollar market size, like, for example, B2B marketplaces, B2C marketplaces, travel and hospitality, education, housing, etc. All these are ecosystem trends that are very well visible. And insurance can easily be placed in various, many of these ecosystems. As a result, many insurers are trying to enter these sort of ecosystems. But if you look at Ping An, for example, it's a good example. So they've got a finance arm, for example. They've got a healthcare arm. They've got an entertainment arm, housing arm, auto arm, insurance arm, and so on. So it's basically you have one account, but via that you could do a lot of things. So why do I say this? Is you're basically entering an era in insurance. The explosion of data could be way beyond anybody could imagine. Like in these ecosystems, suddenly an insurance company like Ping An will be exposed to the type of data it never saw before, at a volume it never imagined before. Of course, for Ping An, they started by that premise, so they probably know it. But for a lot of other insurance companies, if they enter this sort of world, it's new in many dimensions. So as a result, it's hard to imagine there is any other solution other than AI for really being successful in these sort of ecosystem plays. This is an interesting fact about the industry. If you look at the number of times people interact with different type of entities. On the right side, you've got social media. On the circle on the top, it says how many times a year, roughly, on average. So, for example, people interact with their social media roughly 400 times a year. And on the leftmost side of it, you see that insurance sector is. Health insurance, people interact a little bit more often with, roughly 10, 15 times a year. And then you come to life insurance, barely once or twice. It's a shocking statistics. If you want to do AI, if you only talk to your customers once or twice a year, you're not going to really have enough data to be successful at AI. And also, you're not going to have enough connectivity and relationship with your customer to be really a key player in their life beyond paying for their claims. So as a result, ecosystem play for insurance industry could fundamentally change this chart. Because if you look at the Ping An example, they're going to talk, there could be basically the retail bank as well as insurance, as well as telco, et cetera, et cetera. So in a way, insurance concept within an ecosystem could end up being hundreds of times a year of interaction. As a result, a massive explosion in data. As a result, a perfect place for AI to come in and play a significant role. So now that we see how AI could be important in insurance, how should we bring AI there? I generally believe that we should devise an approach called AI-first product design. And by that, we are talking about developing apps and services that are design-led, and at the same time, design-led being that they're human-centric, they reflect on human needs, and also at the same time trying to use machine learning to inform and assist their users. Informing means telling you stuff that helps you, and ideally in a predictive manner, anticipating your needs and telling you that. Like if you use your iPhone, sometimes when you sit in your car, you're about to drive, you see something showing up in your iPhone that says 20 minutes to that address. What iPhone is doing there is that it's first predicting that you're going to go to that address. Second is predicting how long it's going to take for you to get there. So basically two predictions. Each of them requires a significant amount of accuracy. Otherwise, you're going to see basically spam showing up on your push notifications here and there. So this level of service was not possible until we saw the new performances in AI. So as a result, informing is more and more a possibility. Whereas in the past, we used to like the concept of information retrieval. You go to Google and say, I want the top 10 restaurants in the 5-kilometer vicinity, and then Google bring you a list. You do whatever you want with it. Whereas in the iPhone example that I said, what it's doing is really not waiting for you to ask it. It's going to make a few predictions. It trusts the prediction to a level that it thinks is going to satisfy you. Therefore, it's going to show it up in your notification without you even wanting it. But when you see it, you love it, and it continues to go on, and you live happily ever after with your iPhone. So that's the informing, but assisting is what you saw. A few videos of Google that was doing things on your behalf. It was basically assisting you to book a restaurant or book a haircut or whatever. So what do we need to make this AI-first vision to become a reality? Of course, the most important thing is talent. In order for this whole thing to happen, you need talent across 3 key pillars. You need to basically have an agenda that is focused on that circle, on that point in the middle. That is at the intersection of feasible, desirable, and viable. What is feasible with AI? That's what scientists are really good at. They know what AI can do, and also they can, if you have got an in-house R&D team, they can make that blue circle bigger. The viable is basically what insurance industry and their history can teach you. So if you have, for example, business analysts, business partners, they could sit down with the industry and say, what do you think is a viable solution? Is it financially sensible? Or do we have an appetite to enter that sort of risk? And so on. And of course, the desirable part is basically the human. Designers, product owners, product managers, these are the people who are really good at sitting down with the user, understanding what they want, and coming back and saying, this is what we should build. And I think that's fundamentally the thing that a lot of time. There's a book by Dan Olson called The Lean Product Playbook. I love that book. And it's really basically talking about the green circle. How should we do things in a way that is reflecting on the desirable side of it? So, I mean, luckily at AIG, we have invested in these talents quite significantly. We are, as far as I know, the only insurance company that publishes an article in AI conferences like NIPS and ICML, which are the top 2 machine learning conferences. We sponsor both events. So in a way, we really value the talent in these areas. Of course, the second thing, I mean, I say first and second, but they're not really in a importance order or anything. It's just all of them matter. It's hard to do it without one of them. The second thing is data. If you know about this app by DeepMind called Streams, DeepMind has got a lot of algorithms, and this app is not really at the beginning a place for them to plug these algorithms in. At the beginning, they're basically using this to collect the right data, because the health systems from the beginning is not collecting the perfect data. So that's why they developed this app. This app gradually builds more and more data, and gradually you can bring more and more algorithms in. And a lot of the time, this is something that a lot of people underestimate, a lot of companies underestimate. So as a result, it's never too late. Let's start to build these sort of apps to gather the data so you could start to build more and more AI as you go on. So it's extremely critical to have the data collection platform sooner rather than later. And of course, design, which is the green circle. There's this famous tweet that says there are loads of problems that customers have. There are a lot of stuff that your chatbot can solve, but if the two don't overlap, everybody's wasting their time. It's really important that we can actually solve a real-life user problem. And also, the thing that sometimes, I mean, I heard it a couple of times in different wording today. This is the thing that a lot of time people underestimate or forget about. Sometimes it becomes all about, here is a process we have today. Can you isolate one part of it, take it out, improve it with AI, and put it back in? It's not just that. A lot of the time, it's about reimagining the story. It's basically sometimes disruptive innovation, or sometimes as simple as a simple reimagination. Let's talk about cyber insurance. So, as you've seen from the earlier talks today, cyber risk is becoming a much, much bigger problem in today's world. And AIG, if not the biggest, is one of the biggest insurers of cyber risk in the world. And it was all about understanding a company and coming up with a price that makes sense and waiting for something to happen. But there are a lot of interesting companies out there who are doing things that if you know they're doing it, you suddenly can sit back and say, how would I redesign the whole thing now that I know these things exist as an option for me? Like, for example, Synack is a group of hackers, white hat hackers, that can basically be recruited to attack your IT infrastructure. And as a result, tell you what vulnerabilities you might have. But again, they're white hat hackers, so it's a safe bet that you end up out of this exercise knowing about the vulnerability and hence a better IT infrastructure. BitSight can provide a lot of similar information about your IT ecosystem. Like, for example, it can call various network addresses it has and come back to you and say, this is the characteristic of the network of this company. And Science is another company who's got a lot of information related to cyber aspect of a company, as well as the directors and officers of a company and various key leaders of it and so on. And of course, Darktrace is an AI company that looks at the traffic in a company's network and can tell you if some activity is a malpractice or is it an intrusion and so on. Now, we've got all these building blocks. We can redesign the cyber insurance. So for example, you can say, instead of answering 100 questions, so I know exactly what sort of computer network you're running, I don't really need to ask any question. I can ask these guys to tell me the answers. The second thing is, now that you're my customer, instead of me waiting for a massive attack to happen, I can have Darktrace monitoring your network, and I can have Synack giving you a list of your vulnerabilities. And as a result, pretty much it's the likelihood of having a claim in my portfolio could go down and down. So insurance companies can use a lot of AI in these sort of directions as well to reimagine now that AI exists to this level of accuracy. So for example, we have entered a partnership with Darktrace to basically do these sort of stuff, which kind of gets us a little bit to the ecosystem play as well around cybersecurity. So this is the state of insurance today. If we speak as $1 being the total size of market in commercial insurance, so pretty much, roughly speaking, 60 pence or so goes back to paying the claims, and roughly 25, 30 goes back to the distribution channels like brokers and so on, and the operational expense of running an insurance company, again, roughly around 10%, whatever you're left with, I might have exceeded 100%, but that green part could be positive or negative if you're a good or bad insurance company or a lucky or unlucky one. So in a sense, what AI can do, the way I described it so far, you see that AI could help you reduce the risk of claims, hence it's going to make that 50, 60p to go down further. And it's going to probably facilitate a lot of the work that distribution requires today, because the reason distribution is so expensive is because there's a lot of operations happening in it. But the reality is, of the modern era is that many of this data could be gathered properly, seamlessly, and so on, hence a cheaper cost there. And of course, more and more automation, more and more machine learning algorithms embedded successfully in the business could mean cost of running an insurance company could be driven down. Hence, you're going to hopefully have a bigger green section on the top. Reflecting on all these things, we have recently started working on this app called Donut. It's basically our first AI-first underwriting distribution platform. We are likely to go live in less than a month, and is SME focused. And basically, it's trying to reflect pretty much on everything I said, and that's it.